evening. The Village of Hainesville public hearing will now come to order on Tuesday, October 28th, 2014 at 7:11 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Linda Soto.
Present.
Trustees Darnowski.
Here.
Kreis.
Here.
Duberstein. Bailey. Barrett.
Whatever your name is.
Daly.
Here.
And Walkington, sorry.
That's what happens when you're late. It's punishment. All right, good evening, everyone. We're here for a hearing for the purpose on an issue that I have seen raised and discussed on and off ever since it first came up. In fact, actually, I guess initially it came up prior to my moving here in '94. 91, the new addresses were brought forth because of the 911 system coming to the area, and new addresses were established that came into full effect in '93. And I have in a file where this issue has been brought up, different difficulties at different times. It's been researched by different people. And about 6-8 months ago, it was brought up to me again that this issue is still causing problems with mail delivery. People are not necessarily receiving their mail in a timely manner. Some mail is lost and never makes it to their house. There's an issue of packages not being delivered to the right place. Utility companies going to the wrong house, and then when you call and say when you're coming, they said we were there, nobody was home, but they were in turn at the wrong house. And then there's been issues about 911 response, and as in the growth of the area, the growth of our police agencies, even the police getting confused of what address to go to first. So I went back, talked to various officials in the area in Round Lake Park, in Hainesville, and the Greater Round Lake Fire Department. We have our police chief, Chief Perlini, with us tonight, and we quickly concluded that the way to put this to bed once and for all, and that with the change in technology of the 911 issue, the question that was raised way back when that caused this change is really a non-issue, and that would be to simply revert the addresses back to their original numbers. So there would not be duplicate addresses any longer between the Village of Hainesville and the Village of Round Lake Park. So, with that, unless the trustees have any questions for clarification on what I just said, I am going to start letting public comments being made. So if there's no further questions or any questions from the board, we'll start with Ty Williford. And Ty, if you would step forward to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, it's Ty Williford. I live at 241 North Fairlawn. I will be affected by this change, obviously, which is why I'm here. It's not just a concern of having to update family and friends, but when I first got this notice, I said, oh, it's not a big deal. But then as I sat there and dwelled on all the changes that I would have to go through, all the individuals I'd have to contact, subscriptions, my employer, my union, my teaching certificate, my doctors, my schools, all this information, I was like, wow, this is really turning into a big process when it should have just been a simple change in the address. And then my husband brought up the fact, okay, we're going to also have to pay to update our driver's licenses, his passport. We're going to have to pay to update my teaching certificate, which operates on having a current address. So now I'm having to pay out fees for this as well. And that started to raise a concern for us that it's not just I'm changing my address, but now I'm having to dish out money for something as well that for a family that lives paycheck to paycheck, that's kind of tough. So that was a concern for us as well.
Can I ask if you have personally experienced any of the difficulties that I listed?
I think our biggest inconvenience is having to talk to the pizza delivery driver. But other than that, we've never really had an issue. I've received all of my mail. I've never had a concern of people not being able to locate my home. Packages arriving. I said our biggest concern is the pizza delivery guy calls and says, are you at the end of the street or the beginning of the street? We're confused on that. And for us, that's not a big deal. We expect it and we just deal with it. But other than that, we've never really had an inconvenience by this.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Next, Gabriel Figueroa.
Good evening. Yeah, my name is Gabriel.
Oh, step up to the mic, please, and then your name and address for the record again.
Gabriel Figueroa, 218 North Sportsman Drive. This change does affect me, but also if it doesn't get done, it's affecting me big time because there's another 218 in my lake, and it's not very nice. Packages have been lost, mail doesn't get delivered, I don't get it back. There was a time that I was expecting a really important package, passport, it got lost. I put a note in his door. I went to check an hour later, the note was gone. I never got an answer. I'm not happy with the address change because, I mean, obviously we gotta spend money to change everything like she was saying. So I don't know who's gonna cover this cost as far as house papers, credit cards, everything. I mean, so that's what I'm here for. And I got other issues, but those are out of the subject right now. So probably, I don't know if I can bring them up right now.
Not right now, you're welcome to stay for the regular board meeting, which immediately follows the hearing.
Okay.
And there's a public comment time in that meeting, so if there's something else, a separate issue, you would like to address the board, you're welcome to stay and do that.
Okay, thank you.
But you need to fill out a new card for that too, okay?
Yeah,
Okay?
thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep.
And I have heard from other people what you're experiencing with the packages and such, and that's one of the reasons we brought this forth. The next resident is John Newells.
My name is John Rules. I live at 374 West Pineview. It's the northwest corner of Fairlawn and Pineview. First, a question of clarification. Is Pineview, are the Pineview address the only ones that are changing?
No.
Okay, so Forest Glen and Fairlawn, they're changing as well?
Yes, Pineview, Fairlawn, and Forest Glen.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that. Certainly, I've experienced all of the same problems that everyone else has. UPS has figured out where I live. FedEx is 50-50.
Okay.
Nobody else knows. I've literally had delivery drivers show up at my house and tell me that I have my address wrong, that I live on East Pine. I'm like, dude, I live here. The core of my question is, because I've lived in my house back since I was originally 224 East Pineview. My family moved into that house when I was 7. And I'm curious, why are we, I guess really the question is, why aren't we just taking the 24 residences that are in that tiny little arbitrary corner of Hainesville, and why are we not just being annexed around that park? Why, has that been discussed? Has anyone considered that?
Well,
Because if we want to finish this for once and for all, for real, I mean, the real problem is that, I've actually had issues with the police. I've called 911 before. They connect me to Grace Lake Police, and they tell me, no, you need to talk to Round Lake Park. Call Round Lake Park. They tell me, no, you need to talk to Grace Lake. This is when I'm calling 911. I mean, the concern here is not just logistical inconveniences and pizza delivery. This is a public safety issue. I mean, there was a police raid on a house 2 doors down from mine. It's like,
yeah, I just want to interject, because you brought up annexation. Annexation is something that occurs when there's land that's unincorporated and then becomes part of a municipality. Moving, homesteads from your municipality to another is a whole different animal, and I can have our attorney give a better legal explanation on that. But I don't know how that would solve the situation since there's duplicate addresses, because now you'd have duplicate addresses within the same town instead of duplicate addresses within 2 different towns.
no, I'm suggesting we do both. I'm suggesting we change the addresses and move over to Round Lake Park. Because physically, it doesn't make much sense. It's an arbitrary line on the map that goes like this and cuts right through the middle of.
Right, it's goofy that the
Yeah.
boundary is in the middle of the block, and I get
I'm
that.
sure once upon a time that made sense.
Jim, do you want to give the explanation on the annexation issue, or?
As you suggested, it wouldn't simply be annexation. It would because you're already in a municipality, it would be there would be at least 2 steps involved. One would be disconnection from the current municipality, the second would be annexation into the other one, and there'd have to be an agreement between the 2 units of government to do that, or action by the residents who reside in that area to make it happen.
And all of them would have to be in agreement, right? Or a majority?
Well, there's a legal process to go, it's in the statutes, but it's, to be honest with you, I don't know that it's all of them would have to, but there would need to be a petition and then a vote. If it was done by the citizens' initiative, we'd have to do it that way.
It had been on my mind of late to consider doing that. Before I decided to do anything with it, this came up, so I thought this would be a better time to ask if anyone had ever considered it before.
Yeah.
It's like,
The only thing I will tell you, when this issue came up again, I did speak briefly with Round Lake Park. I spoke with their police chief. I spoke, actually left messages for the police chief. I didn't get to speak to him directly, but our police chief had some communication with him. I did speak with the mayor. I think more or less they viewed it as our problem. And so we're addressing it with our residents. That's what my concern is safety, public safety for residents who reside within Hainesville.
If you want to pursue it though, you should probably start talking to your neighbors and see how many are interested. Because if, for example, if you're the only one who's interested in doing that, it's a dead issue.
Absolutely it is. I may do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then last green card, so if anybody else was expecting to talk and we don't have your card, please bring it up to our clerk now. Angelo Delaborges.
Good evening. My name is Angelo Della Georges. I live at Post Office Box 654, Hainesville, Illinois. And the reason I'm here is since I don't live in Hainesville, because I'm the property owner of one of the apartment buildings located here in Hainesville. I received a notice for the meeting tonight, so I thought I'd come here and share my ideas with you. Our apartment building is the only address, I think, on Pine Tree Drive in Hainesville. So I don't understand, that's the agenda tonight is duplicate addresses, but I don't think there's any.
Your apartments are not the only addresses on Pineview.
There may be one more, but that's it.
No, we have
In Hainesville?
in Hainesville.
For 20?
22.
Okay, 18? So there's 4 more? Okay. Is that what we're saying? I mean, is that how we're counting? I
Do
mean,
each one of your apartments have a separate address?
there's 18 addresses concerning this apartment.
3 buildings, 18
Three buildings,
18 addresses.
Okay. So there might be 4 more? Is that-
But there's 12 additional addresses that are
In Hainesville?
Yeah,
In Hainesville.
in Hainesville.
Oh, thank you. The next one is that,
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Oh, okay. I'm sorry,
No,
go
no, no.
ahead.
The ones on the other side, there's 23.
Outside of the apartment. I'm trying to give the
Oh,
total
oh.
outside of the number of apartments that I view. Okay? All right.
okay.
Okay, go
The
ahead.
next point is, this afternoon before the meeting, I drove down Pineview Drive and Fairlawn, and I didn't see any similar addresses. Perhaps they're there. I drove 1 block each way, no similar addresses. And the final thing is that something, as other people have mentioned here, there would be a considerable cost, I think, for changing the addresses on the 18 units and for all the residents that live there, and also some other signs with the addresses on there. And that's my point. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
First, I'd like to make a few statements on some research that our clerk did and share that with you, and then I'll welcome comments or questions from the board to go to the residents, and then we'll give you another round if you decide you want to come up and make another comment, okay? We did take into consideration changes you would have to make. The fee for changing the address on a current driver's license is $5. New checks being printed, and let's face it, we use a lot less checks than we used to, but it varies depending on what type of account you have. You also may want to use this opportunity to shop for a new account, because there's a lot of banks that give free checks, or you know, if you open a new account. But new checks from Deluxe.com, 2 boxes of duplicate checks, which gives you the carbon copy, which is a little bit nicer check. That's $13.90 a box. The biggest expense that we found, particularly for a single-family home versus the apartments, which I'll address that separately, to record the deed would be $39. I am guessing you would have to do that with 3 addresses, or 3 plats, I should say, for your apartment buildings, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. Obviously, there's some phone calls you would have to make with changes in your billing address on credit cards. A lot of that you can do online if you have access to a computer. If you don't, we might be able to work something out where we can make a computer available to you on a temporary basis. Yes, libraries have computers too as well. So that is what we found to be the changes involved, and obviously there's changing the number on your address itself, buying the numbers at the hardware store, or the adhesive stickers, depending on what you use on your mailbox. So that would be the expenses involved. So any additional thoughts on that? Now, the question is, if public safety is the issue, and I would think it's costing, obviously, at least some of our residents quite a bit of time and money, much more than I think this permanent fix would, as far as having packages go to the wrong place and packages not being recovered. And, you know, I've heard, there's one resident that's not here for whatever reason tonight, but talked about, of course, it was a birthday gift that they had ordered. It was an expensive item they bought online. Well, they never got it. And, you know, they were in an argument with the other household. You know, did they get the package? Who got the package? You know, we had mentioned that a passport you didn't get that you were expecting to arrive. Those are the issues we're trying to address. And so I ask you to consider that, and please step forward again, and after hearing that, tell me what you think, because it really, as far as for myself as mayor or this board, it doesn't impact us as much what your address is. Now, our police chief may have something very different to say about his experiences with the police and fire, and I'm going to give him the floor in a minute. Just another note that I will encourage you to do is that one other step you take, and we will supply the cards, I'll gladly pick them up from the postmaster, is you do fill out a change of address card. And while you're not physically moving, you're going to fill it out and say my old address is and my new address is. So that any subscriptions that didn't get changed, some of you say you're still getting your mail, okay, it will go to the post office, they'll slap on the sticker, and you should still get your mail then. So Chief, do you want to add any thoughts on 911 calls and such?
I'd just like to say that I'm not aware of any time where a police department has not shown up on a 911 call. It may not be the correct police department. Maybe Round Lake Park has shown up and called and said this is Grays Lake's call, or vice versa. I know that we personally in Grays Lake have had an incident or two where we've gone to an address that was believed to be Grays Lake and then had to go further down the block, or in Hainesville, and go further down the block because it's actually Round Lake Park, and and stood by for the Round Lake Park officers to be there. Now, how many times that's occurred in Round Lake Park versus Hainesville, I'm not aware of. It doesn't happen a huge amount of times, but it does happen, I'm aware. And this is a way to fix it. It's a way to fix it in both of our CADs. Each town uses a different computer-aided dispatch. Each town has a different dispatch center. So it makes it a little bit difficult when you have these dicey addresses for us to respond appropriately at times. But like I say, I'm not aware of anyone who's made a 911 call and the police have not shown up. Just hasn't happened. So is there a delayed response? There could be. More often than not, though, what happens is one of the police departments shows up and it's not our jurisdiction and we have to give it over to the other officer. So maybe you have to explain to us what's going on, and then we realize this isn't ours, this is Round Lake Park's. And we call Round Lake Park over and you have to tell your story all over again. Inconvenient, yes, hopefully not traumatic, but it has happened. This is the kind of thing that clears all that up. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's all about address points and geo-verifying things that, you know, quite frankly, I didn't understand until, you know, quite a few years ago. But if you're not in the business, you don't understand it, maybe. But each address has a point. Each point has to be verified in the town. We have duplicate addresses. We verify things that are on our border also. So if there's duplicate addresses on Pineview, let's say in Round Lake Park and in Hainesville, both those addresses will verify in our system, and both those addresses will verify in the CENTCOM system. So it could be that you get a duplicate response, but it will never be that you don't get a response. This is just to clarify things, make it easier for us to respond, and for the fire department to respond, quite frankly. It's all set up on their grid system.
All right, that being said, is there any of the residents that previously spoke that would like to step forward and make additional comment based on what you just heard from us? Okay, please, step forward. Both of you, just one at a time, but might as well just get in line at the mic. Restate it, yeah, just so you're going to state your name and address again for the record.
Gabriel, 218 North Forest Glen Drive. An issue I have is as far as mortgage papers. I mean, do you have any idea what that costs to change everything as far as when I get the title on my house, hopefully if I pay it off one day?
There's a cost for the deed.
For the deed is the $39, but the mortgage company, all you do is tell them your.
So when you I'm ignorant in this, you know, I don't know about this. So when you said a deed, you frame of the paper, legal papers and the property?
The deed is what holds your house, the title to your house.
Okay.
So you would contact Lake County Treasurer's Department, and you would change your deed. We could provide the forms for you. But as far as your mortgage company, there would not be a charge because they're just changing the address, like for your payments.
It'd be like calling your biller, your credit card. Yeah. As long as you send them a check every month, they'll put whatever address you want on there.
Right.
There's no
Because,
you don't have the deed, the mortgage company has the deed.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, but also have the papers of the house.
You're just gonna sign
as far as the survey and the address and everything. So I don't know if that all that has to be changed. Do I gotta hire an attorney to do all that legally?
No.
Okay.
No. We give you the form, you send it in, so, right?
yeah, you can send it in with your $39, and then it's changed. 2 weeks, you'll get it back in the mail.
thank you.
If you want to speak, you need to fill out a card, brief form.
Again, Ty Wilford. Kind of along those lines, obviously we'd have to do the forms, and you said you'd be able to provide those for us so we could change the deed. How does that affect us when it comes to filing taxes? If my address changes February, if I file taxes in March, legally, will there be any other paperwork that is involved in having to make sure that they're not looking at it and going, wait a second, you moved, you didn't notify us, so was there a sale or something? And, how would that affect us come tax thought or idea of some sort of reimbursement for all the changes that we're gonna have to come up with financially, especially since it sounds like, it doesn't seem very much to everybody here, but for the families or even the apartment complex that has to do a lot of changes, is there any sort of reimbursement or help that we can get with those finances?
First question, does the deed automatically update the tax roll? Jim, do you know?
I think you're asking a different question. Are you talking about income taxes?
When it comes to filing my taxes, I have to say whether I'm a homeowner or not. And if my address has changed in the time and I have moved, how does that affect it?
It shouldn't make any difference. You didn't sell your home, so if you did, there's a separate document that you have to file with the home sale, but
Okay.
since you didn't, it would just be a change of address.
Okay, I want to be sure about that.
Perhaps we could make a list of common suggestions of places that would need to be changed so that people would have, and so that would give them an idea of the kinds of things that they would need to follow up on.
Well, if we vote to do this, we would. We're not voting tonight, we're voting at a future board.
I'm just saying
meeting. Yeah.
that might help them.
That would be helpful for a lot of
Yeah.
families.
Yes, yeah, and we're talking about getting forms and other issues if we move forward with this. And there was a brief mention when this was brought up at our last board meeting of some type of possible stipend, if you will, amount. And that is why we did have the clerk do the research on what the fees would be. So that has been considered. And that's why we wanted also to hear other people's comments to see if there was anything we overlooked, and we'll take that all into consideration. And our intent is, after we close the hearing, this will not be discussed later tonight. We will go back and research anything additional we think we overlooked, give us time to think about it, to go back and confirm anything, for example, with the county regarding the deed, or you know, what I thought you were talking about was the county tax bill.
That would be another
Yeah.
concern, all of the taxes that
Yeah,
come along.
that's a
with
good
the property
question. I
tax,
believe
they
the
change
deed
things.
just flips that over, and it would still, the tax bill would not change.
So they have to do any sort of extra reassessment because the address changes?
The PIN number isn't changing.
No,
So
no,
the PIN number is always
gonna be the same.
Okay.
So the tax,
But we could get confirmation all of that, because as Georgianne stated, we should put something in writing that kind of explains all of that. So I think that's a real good thought. And certainly now is the time, if you think that we've overlooked anything, that we should take into consideration. And our next board meeting after tonight will be November 11th, and this will be on that agenda, and we will ask the board for a vote if we're going to move forward with the address change.
And if you think there's anything else we need to consider before a decision is made, feel free to call the village hall. We're all available via the web if you want to reach a particular trustee, or you can call the village hall and leave messages, or talk to the clerk or the mayor. You can come up with something else that we haven't, that wasn't discussed tonight.
I don't know. There was a young woman that had her hand up. Did you fill out the green card? Step forward. Cecilia Figueroa?
Yes,
Okay.
Southern Figueroa, 218 on Forest Glen, Hainesville. I was just going to comment exactly what the young lady mentioned there. I just think that you should take in consideration of the reimbursement of the hassle with the deeds, and like you guys said, that to call Lake County treasurer to figure out what type of paperwork we would need. I just think that's too much. of a
You're not going to need to
hassle.
call and figure out the paperwork you need.
But to fill out, let them know what
You would have to fill it out. Yes,
Yes.
you have to fill out and submit a check.
Yes,
for
and
that,
you
yeah.
know, it may not be such a large amount, the $39, but as for the checks, I wouldn't be happy to change banks. I've been with Bank of America forever, so, and I pay $50 to order checks, you know, I'm not still doing all my paying online. So, you know, that's $50 out of my pocket, and I just think that you guys should just be in consideration, as in, The property stuff, the stuff with the house, if maybe you guys.
Bank of America charges you $50
No,
for an
no,
order of checks?
I order checks. I order checks, it's all my personal checks, and
Yeah.
that's what I get charged. I mean,
That's my question, because that's
Yeah.
kind of outrageous.
$50.
With all due respect,
Yeah,
there's got to be a better way with Bank of America. I'd call them on that, because that's outrageous.
yes, and then, I mean, just in consideration, just the bat, I mean, take
I'm
all
gonna get in
that,
trouble now, right?
take that load out of our shoulders, because that's something that I would appreciate. I mean, maybe it not maybe a lot, but I'm the one.
No, and I understand. I do appreciate that. I do
So
appreciate
I
that.
just, I do agree with the young lady, it's gonna be a big headache. We're talking about so many things to change.
Now, when you say it's going to be a big headache, are you saying that you don't want this to occur?
No, I mean, it could occur, but I'm saying.
But do you feel that you would receive a benefit if it occurred?
Of course, everybody would, like the.
And the benefit would be, no, I'm talking about you as a resident. Do you feel you would receive a benefit?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you would still like this to occur?
It could occur, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm just saying as in the costs. That's what I'm saying. That's something
Okay.
for you guys to think
Okay.
about, as in to
Yeah.
help us out.
Yeah.
I mean, we already got enough with the mortgage and other bills, that's,
Right. Yeah.
that's something we wanna get rid of, then add another thing to it, it's too much.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pinpoint on if there's anybody here that's saying, I'm against this. I'm a Hainesville resident and I don't want the address change.
Would be me.
Can you fill out a card real quick and come up and step forward and state the reason why for our benefit?
Thank you.
Lawrence Angelo, I'm his property manager, you still want me to figure it out?
Yes, yeah, everybody has to fill out a card that speaks. Any other takers while we're waiting? There's coffee, cookies, please make yourself comfortable. Cameraman needs a break, that's early.
Teasing, I'm teasing.
Okay, Sherry, let's take your,
Okay, my name is Mary Berryman. I live at 321 West Pine Drive in Hainesville. I'm the property manager for Angelo Della George's.
Step a little closer.
Of Pineview Apartments. I believe Angelo bought it about 14 years ago. I've been with it ever since, and before that. When he first bought the property, we would have problems for a few years with comment. New tenants would move in, he didn't recognize the address. Never really had any problems like with Comcast or AT&T. And I know that's something that has recently, I know 2 incidents, one with Comcast and one with AT&T. And not only people having service here in Hainesville, but for same address in Romney Park. As far as packages go, I'm addicted to shopping on the internet. And my therapist is working with me on that one. I have always received every package. They're pretty regular, UPS, FedEx. Might be a little bit confusion with the, if they're off or whatever. The postman has been there forever. I get anxious.
okay, it's okay.
But I don't agree with the change. On the letter, it has focused a lot on 911. when Hainesville changed to Grays Lake Police Department, being the property manager, I've had to call 911 several times. Most of the responses are you called the wrong number, or we'll transfer you. Actually, none of them being accepted. And I don't care if only Park comes or Grays Lake.
I don't know how 911 can say you called the wrong number.
Yeah, they tell us we should be calling Grays Lake. And
But 911 is 911.
Yeah.
They don't say you called the wrong number.
Would you like me to transfer you? No, I've gotten these responses.
You get transferred to the dispatch for Grays Lake, yeah.
When answers the 911 call, sometimes we get, that's what the comments that I get.
And when did these occur?
Well, I didn't write it down.
Well, in the last 3 months, 2 years ago, when we first changed, when did they occur?
Probably, because I'm usually pretty explicit to where we are. They know Pine View Apartments now. Probably more so in the last year.
Okay. So nothing when we first changed. The problem started a year ago, after they were servicing us a year.
Yeah, may not even have been that long.
Okay.
My problem, I think, is if delivery people, they use MapQuest and such, but our little corner over there isn't on there. And I think that would, however, would eliminate some of those problems. I mean, why is it like we're not there?
Okay, so one thing I'm trying to understand, you did say there's been some confusion. So you're against changing the addresses because of what? What is your main reason for?
Okay, the inconvenience like everybody else has spoken to.
Financially, or just regardless of the financial?
Financially,
Okay.
all the paperwork that would involve. I'm handicapped. I have a case manager with the Lake County Health Department. It's not free. She would have to do a lot of these things for me. That's a big cost. You know, there's probably other people that are handicapped, or, you know, as a single mom, before I even became sick, I was working 2-3 jobs. When do people find the time to have to make all these changes? And not only the cost and
So it sounds like the financial end of it. The financial end of it and the inconvenience of making the changes would be a challenge to you. So let me ask you this. If we could get assistance, whether it's through the Lake County Health Department or staff, to assist you with that paperwork, so it wouldn't be such a burden at no extra cost. You're saying that you would have to pay for it if this person from the county helped you.
I think I had to change all my well, the magazine subscriptions, I don't worry about that. All the credit cards, comment, anybody who may.
Right, that we've discussed. So if we could help you with that.
Like IE programs, Social Security, things like that.
Okay. All right, well, we will take that into I keep turning my mic off because I keep getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, you know, for at the apartments, it's gonna be a big cost. It would be a very large cost to Angelo. So, you know, he's gonna have to write up, buy more leases, pay somebody to write those leases up, buy all new numbers, pay maintenance people to put up those numbers.
Well, are the leases are pre-printed with the addresses on them?
Yeah. No, we print them. We have to buy the leases, we'll have to buy more, and then we print on each lease, because they'll have to have.
I think they could initial the change, Jim, couldn't they? I mean, for a lease, you're talking about a current lease?
Mhm.
Angelo, and quite honestly, I would think that since Angelo's the property owner, and I have worked with Angelo on other projects regarding his property, such as when we got village water to your buildings, and I think that the village worked very satisfactorily with you. So Angelo, maybe you and I can meet or have a call on the phone to discuss some of those issues, because I think there's some easy answers there. I don't think you have to redo all leases. I think that's something that could be done with initially, and I'm sure you have an attorney that could even confirm that. I would recommend that you do. I don't think you have to reprint all that, so that might be, but we'll explore that. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
All right, if there's oh, we have another taker.
I'll be quick, I promise.
Take as much time as you want. Thank you. Dina Hine.
Hi, 179 Brittany Lane. And I apologize, I have a hearing problem, so I didn't hear, how many houses does this affect?
Total? 41.
41, okay. And I'm not one of them. So I guess for everybody else's benefit, maybe just ask the board to consider reimbursing the deed change once it is done and the client provides proof that it was done, we can reimburse them. And then maybe a $50 cap for 6 months on reimbursing for passports, driver's license, and getting checks, just to maybe help them out. And paperwork wise, I really didn't think that there'd be that big of a deal, but that's fine. That's
Okay,
it.
all right, thank you. Any other comments? Restate your name and address, yeah.
John Rules, 274 West Pine View. The other lady had mentioned MapQuest. I don't know exactly what the process is for asking MapQuest or Google Maps or Apple Maps or Yahoo or Bing or any of the others to request an update with them, but that would probably help a lot. I'm kind of surprised I hadn't thought of it sooner. I mean, it's like I work in IT, my brain should have gone there. But yeah, if someone in-house here could actually find out what the process, what the mechanism is to ask Google to update that, and then Bing, and then Yahoo, and all the others, and then actually put in that paperwork to have them update their database with that information, that would be pretty good.
That is a very good point, and I don't know the process either, but I know who to ask. I'm gonna have to check with our village engineer. Unfortunately, that's not gonna solve the case with everyone that gives you deliveries. I think in the future it will. A lot of us do have GPS systems. Certain companies use them, others don't yet, surprisingly, so.
I guess that was Garmin and TomTom as well.
Yeah, yes.
Because yeah, for the most part, I found with delivery drivers, if they're using Google Maps, 90% of the time they'll find them correctly. If they're using literally anything else, they will not. So I think Google has it right, or at least it gets them to the right neighborhood, and then they just see them around the house. With everybody else, everyone else thinks it's still East Pine View. They don't even, MapQuest still thinks it's East Pine View. I'm pretty sure Yahoo still thinks it's East Pine View. I don't know what Bing is, who they are. But yeah, that would be a big help, especially as far as the deliveries.
Just think of what would happen if we changed you to Brown Lake Park.
Then, again, I would ask Brown Lake Park then to send the same update out to Google and Yahoo and everyone else. And then it would be resolved forever. I think part of the biggest problem here is that when I tell someone I'm on Pine View, west or east, whatever, but in Hainesville, it gets weird now because there's another Pine View in Round Lake Park. If all Pine Views were all in Round Lake Park and all Forest Glens and all Fairlawns were all in Round Lake Park, there's no confusion anymore. And certainly within Round Lake Park, they're going to have duplicate addresses. Obviously, we'd still have to change our house numbers, but hey, we're changing towns anyway.
The one thing is if you poll the households, and if that's something that you and the other residents choose to pursue.
Yeah, no, it's way outside the scope of the meeting. Mostly I just want to ask.
I want to tell you the Round Lake Park taxes are higher than Hainesville.
If it means the police show up on time, I'm all about it.
Okay.
I'm willing to pay for that.
Are there any further comments or questions from the board? And we have another taker from the public. George Duberstein.
George Duberstein, 82 West Hollow Drive, Hainesville. Two quick comments. A lady was concerned about the changing of checks and the $50 fee. I would think that you could tell the bank what the address change is, but the account number would stay the same, so you could probably use the same checks. And if they were concerned about the name going on the checks or the address, they could always cover it over with an address label, so I don't think that's a problem. As far as all the paperwork that people are concerned about, I don't know that I would have the time to do everybody's, but you can use me as a volunteer resource to help with paperwork change if people need it.
Thank you.
And I just did a little search, and passports don't need to be changed for addresses. The only thing that you would need to change is if
Can you use the mic, John? I'm sorry.
The only thing you would need to change is if your name is his name and changed. And that even if it's within a year, they don't charge a fee. So your passport doesn't need to, because it doesn't have your address on it.
Good to know. Any other thoughts, questions?
And banks are very forgiving because originally I did banking with Grace Lake National. That's changed 3 different times. I still have checks from 25 years ago when I was at Grace Lake National. And they accept them.
And they accept them.
As long as the money is the bank, they
Yeah,
take care of
they're
it.
As long as the routing
number doesn't change
They're very forgiving on it.
The other thing that they would need to do is check with the Lake County Clerk's office for registration, for voter registration. If they haven't moved, but the number changes, they just have to let them.
Yeah, but that's not a cost.
No.
Yeah. So we'd have to add that to the list of something to do. Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing closed at 7:58. We'll take a 3-minute break, and then we will start our regular board meeting. Please stick around. We're about to